In the penultimate episode of Season 2 of House of the Dragon, we are presented with some scenes that are equal parts fascinating and horrifying. After confronting and then taking Adam of Hull into her service, a desperate Rhaenyra revisits the idea of taking those with Targaryen lineage, be it legitimate or illegitimate, on as her Dragon Knights, whom the books refer to as Dragonseeds. This forces a confrontation with the mysterious order of Dragon Keepers, who are still upset that she tried to get Sir Steffon Darklyn, who had Targaryen ancestry, but whom the order still viewed as an Andal, to bond with the Dragon Sea Smoke, with horrific results for all involved, to say the least. The head of the order, seeming not cowed at all by the fact that he is yelling at the Queen of the Seven Kingdoms while speaking in High Valyrian, forcefully denounces Rhaenyra's declaration that the Dragonseeds are a boon from the gods, calling Rhaenyra's plans a grasping scheme for power, unworthy of her proud Valyrian heritage. Surprisingly, Rhaenyra, despite her exalted position, tries to placate the order of Dragon Keepers rather than commanding them to follow her commands, which hints at a unique relationship between the Targaryen dynasty and the Order of the Dragon Keepers. The Dragon Keepers must possess a measure of Valyrian heritage themselves, speaking in High Valyrian as they do and being aware of the ancient customs out of the old freehold. Even more, they don't seem to be merely lowly servants, but rather valued allies in some kind of ancient pact with House Targaryen. Rhaenyra's own attempts at placating them instead of using her authority to dominate them would seem to suggest this being the case. But the Order refuses to have anything to do with Rhaenyra's plans for the Dragonseeds, declaring that the Dragonseeds are no Dragonlords, that her plan is utter folly, lettering her known in no uncertain terms that she is on her own on this one. Rhaenyra seems to accept the loss of their services in this matter without reprisal, and after warning the Dragonseeds that bonding with a dragon holds no certainties and failure in doing so could be their last failure in this life, she has the Dragonseeds brought to the Dragonstone Dragon Pit. She then uses High Valyrian to summon Vermithor, declaring that he is the biggest dragon in the world after Vhagar and that his moniker is the Bronze Fury. Vermithor is at first annoyed by the summons, but Rhaenyra's presence and steady, commanding manner serves to calm him, and he responds fondly to her presence after a brief tantrum. Showing herself to be fully accepted by even the foul-tempered Vermithor, Rhaenyra demonstrates the special connection that having the blood of the dragon grants the Targaryens. But in this case, Rhaenyra challenges the Dragonseeds to attempt to bond with Vermithor, an attempt he contemptuously rejects, setting fire to the Dragonseeds and even some of Rhaenyra's guards in his fury. Rhaenyra does nothing to halt the carnage, and instead, displaying the same kind of sociopathic, wistful, distant, rapturous trance-like state that would come over Daenerys whenever watching someone consumed by fire in the original series, show us once again the frightening propensity towards pyrogasmic behavior of the Targaryen line. Vermithor continues his rampage, roasting and eating the panicking Dragonseeds until Hugh the Hammer heroically steps forwards to stall Vermithor, allowing one of the silver-haired female Dragonseeds to flee to safety. Something in Hugh's courageous manner and defiant stance seems to finally appeal to Vermithor, who accepts him as his rider. Concurrently, Ulf the White, having fled deeper into the dragon pit to escape Vermithor, stumbles into Silverwing, who sees something in him acceptable enough to bond with. The whole scene is incredible, giving us much to take in. We must recall the words of the Order, who declared that having a measure of Valyrian heritage is not enough to be a Dragonlord. We must also recall the words of the Daenerys from the original series. A dragon is not a slave, which begs the question, what is a Dragonlord? If even having the Targaryen line of Valyrian heritage does not make one a Dragonlord or guarantee a non-lethal response from a dragon in an attempt at forging a dragon bond, then what qualities do make one a Dragonlord? To answer such a question, we must not look at only what has happened in the show, but consult the world of ice and fire, the untold history of Westeros and the Game of Thrones, which goes back millennia, to examine some of the legends of dragons themselves. In the world of ice of fire histories, the Valyrians themselves claimed that dragons sprang forth as the children of the 14 flames, while in Karth, the tales state that there was once a second moon in the sky. One day this moon was scalded by the sun and cracked like an egg, and 1,000,000 dragons poured forth. In Ashai, the tales are many and confused, but certain texts, all impossibly ancient, claim that dragons first came from the shadow beyond Ashai, a place where all of our learning fails us. These Ashai histories say that a people so ancient they had no name first tamed dragons in the shadow and brought them to Valyria, teaching the Valyrians their arts before departing from the annals. The great beauty of the Valyrians, with their hair of palest silver or gold and eyes in shades of purple, not found amongst any other peoples of the world, is well known, and often held up as proof that the Valyrians are not entirely of the same blood as other men. So sifting through these legends for the pertinent pieces of information to answer our question, we can focus on the genetic heritage of the Targaryens going back to Valyria, which certainly plays a factor as Vermithor's treatment of Rhaenyra displays, and the ancient arts of dragon taming this mysterious ancient race taught the Valyrians before disappearing from history. Notwithstanding the unique bonding incidents of Ulf, Hugh, and Adam in the television adaptation, as well as Nettles bonding in the books, we see that there is some ancient, sorcerous knowledge that comes into play, in addition to the whatever magic lies within the blood. In Septon Barth's Dragons, Worms, and Wyverns, he speculated that the blood mages of old Valyria used wyvern stock to create dragons. Though the blood mages were alleged to have experimented mightily with their unnatural arts, this claim is considered far-fetched by most maesters. Among them, Maester Vanyan's Against the Unnatural contains certain proofs of dragons having existed in Westeros even in the earliest of days, before Valyria rose to be a power. But we can see from this ancient knowledge of the sorceries of Valyria that some kind of blood magic related to dragons took place in addition to the arcane knowledge passed on to them from this mysterious, ancient race. If we look at the more traditional dragon bonding performed by Aemond in Season 1, we can certainly see there are magical commands used in the process, as well as him being of the blood of the dragon. We also don't see, in the books or the show, the same kind of hostile response of the dragons to those who have both the Valryan lineage and the unique upbringing Targaryens have growing up in the midst of dragons. So it's quite interesting to see that a Dragonlord, as the Order of Dragonkeepers sees it, has both the Valyrian heritage and the training from youth on the nature of dragons themselves. As Aemond is able to bond with a dragon despite being part of the Hightower genetic, and Rhaenyra's sons are able to bond despite being an obvious mix of strong and Targaryen, we can see that 100% pure Valyrian blood, which at this point in history doesn't exist, is not the deciding factor in the dragon bond, but some of amount of Valyrian heritage does matter in the process. There is some evidence in the books that the Hightowers, one of the oldest houses in Westeros, may have links to the ancient race that originally taught the Valyrians the arcane arts of dragon command. But as there are many questions to how pure their line is after thousands of years of intermarriage with Andals and First Men, it is only side point we will mention briefly here. But we also cannot ignore attitude. The Targaryens are taught from a young age about dragons, that they are not slaves and are a force to be reckoning with. Viserys, who once bonded with Balerion, but took no other dragon after Balerion passed away, even tells Rhaenyra in Season 1 that it is an illusion that Targaryens control the dragons and that they were a force that never should have been trifled with. So the Targaryens grow up knowing the power of dragons, but also knowing their long lineage going back to the great Dragonlord families of Valyria. They have been told from birth of their greatness in comparison to other men, and know they belong in midst of dragons. They had the pedigree, the training, and the confidence. Contrast with Sir Stephen Darklyn, who felt unworthy of bonding with a dragon like Sea Smoke, and the other Dragonseeds, who clearly felt unworthy, terrified, and out of their depth in the face of the Bronze Fury, who only halts his rampage when Hugh, who has Targaryen lineage, displays incredible courage in the face of certain death. So it's not just Targaryen blood, it's not just magical words of command, and it's not just thinking you can command a dragon, as Quentin Martell learns tragically in the books when he tries to bond one of Daenerys' dragons under the Great Pyramid. But it's some fusion of all these that allows someone to forge a dragon bond. To what extent do you have to have Valyrian blood? We don't know, since they're Valyrians that were never Dragonlords, as Corlys remarks, and yet Adam, who has non-Dragonlord Valyrian heritage, bonds a dragon without even consciously trying in the show. We also know Targaryen dragons were bred for war, as Jorah remarks in the original Game of Thrones series. But we also know that the Freehold had dragons for different purposes, such as the building of the famed Valyrian roads, and we know that dragons that fight and dragons that are used in construction projects would have different temperaments. We also know from the books that there are some dragons that refuse to bond with anyone. Are the unsual bondings of Adam, Hugh, and Ulf on the show lazy writing and attempts to speed characters through their subplots without spending a lot of time on them? Most likely, so we can take them with a grain of salt. So disregarding the outliers from the show, what exactly forges the dragon bond? What, in the eyes of the Dragon Keeper, makes a Dragonlord? Some measure of Valyrian genetics, some measure of knowledge, the sorcerous words of command of dragons, and a will and mindset that appeals to the dragon you are trying to bond with. And a willingness on the dragon's part to bond with one seeking it, because as Daenerys says, and Vermithor the Bronze Fury most certainly shows, a dragon is not a slave.